Today they spit in your food. For words scrawled on a napkin. For words that stopped Malcolm Devo, Billionaire CEO, mid-bite. For a man who had faced corporate betrayals, hostile takeovers, and market crashes, nothing had ever felt this personal. Tonight, inside a Charleston restaurant, the truth wasn't on the menu. It was waiting to explode. And it was about to ignite a story that would shake an entire industry. Malcolm hadn't come to the cradle for steak. He came undercover. Navy hoodie, worn sneakers, nothing hinting at the billions he commanded. Charleston's high-end gym, quietly owned by him, had been flagged in an anonymous letter. Allegations of racially biased service and suspicious kitchen practices. No entourage, no special treatment. Just him. From the moment he stepped in, the rumors weren't just rumors. Seated by the restroom, ignored for 10 full minutes, watched over by a manager who pretended not to see him, Malcolm felt the tension of a polished, poisonous system. And then came the note, slipped silently by a waitress with eyes full of quiet fear. Naomi. She didn't ask for help. She handed the truth like a weapon. This wasn't just a story about food. It was about courage. About someone risking everything to do what's right. About hidden layers of discrimination lurking in privileged spaces, and how one brave woman could force a reckoning. Malcolm Devo was a man who turned silence into strategy. 46, a tech prodigy turned investor, founder of Darrow Capital Holdings, overseeing clean energy, fintech, luxury hospitality. On paper, success, wealth, prestige. Off paper, the kid who learned to tie a tie on YouTube before his first investor pitch, whose first computer came from a church donation bin, whose first investment started in a garage. He didn't flaunt wealth. No designer shoes, no gold watches. People judged black men by appearance before listening. 2 weeks ago, an anonymous letter accused one of his restaurants of mistreating black customers. Instead of lawyers or PR, he bought a Greyhound ticket, donned a hoodie, and walked into the fire himself. He entered the cradle, Charleston's crown jewel of Southern elegance, a place that made people lower their voices. Velvet drapes, gold-rimmed glassware, candlelight that made everyone look important. Portraits of Confederate generals on the walls, unlabeled, history softened by mood lighting. To Malcolm, the cradle echoed a darker truth. Cradle of exclusion, control, tradition masked as elegance. The hostess scanned him with thinly veiled disdain. "Do you have a reservation?" "No," Malcolm replied calmly. She exhaled, performing annoyance. "Fully booked, but bar or kitchen-side seating?" Malcolm nodded. Passing tables of white diners in suits, not a single black face aside from staff. He felt the subtle machinery of status at work. Naomi Brooks moved quietly, carrying the grace of someone hardened by life. 25, law school dreams paused for her mother's cancer bills, relocated to Charleston, working at the cradle. She was the only black waitress on staff. Always scheduled double shifts, always assigned the least desirable tables, always blamed when things went wrong. Her smile was armor. She called every table sir or ma'am, pouring wine, clearing plates, swallowing pride. But armor wears thin. The manager, Mr. Clay, watched like a hawk. Other servers laughed at her expense, and the chef once joked about sending the special to black tables. Naomi wasn't weak. She observed, waited, survived. Tonight felt different. Malcolm at table 14 didn't fit the usual mold. No Rolex, no designer jacket, calm and observant. He looked at her, really looked, and something inside Naomi shifted. She was done merely watching. Tonight, she would act, regardless of the cost. The presidential prime, 48 ounces of Wagyu, dry-aged, $700 spec. Naomi had taken the order dozens of times, from hedge fund managers, politicians, influencers. Never from a man in sneakers, never from a table by the swinging kitchen doors. She sensed eyes on her. Mr. Clay stood in the distance, clipboard in hand, judging. The POS screen flashed red, manager approval required. Naomi hesitated, then swiped her ID, taking responsibility for a $700 steak and $200 wine on gut instinct. Behind her, Clay's voice thundered. "Did he pay up front?" "No, sir," she replied calmly. "Then you better pray he does," he growled. Naomi wasn't praying. She was planning. Maybe, just maybe, this man wasn't here to be served. He was here to see. Naomi had taken orders for that steak a dozen times before. Always from hedge fund managers, politicians, influencers with gold cards. Never from someone in sneakers and a hoodie. Never from the table by the swinging kitchen doors. But tonight, eyes felt like lasers. Across the dining room, Mr. Clay observed her, arms folded, clipboard in hand, scanning every move. Naomi's heart thudded. One wrong step, one hesitation, and the blame would fall squarely on her shoulders. "Is that a problem?" Malcolm asked, calm yet with an edge that cut through the room. "No, sir," she replied, forcing her voice steady, even as her stomach twisted. She turned toward the POS terminal, fingers trembling. Every server knew the rules. If a customer looked questionable and ordered the expensive meal, the kitchen needed manager approval. But Naomi ignored it. She keyed in the order, hit override, and swiped her ID. Responsibility accepted. Behind her, Clay's voice thundered through the hallway. "Did he pay up front?" "No, sir," she answered without turning. "You better pray he does," he growled. Naomi wasn't praying. She was acting. Maybe this man wasn't here to eat. Maybe he was here to see the truth. And if he was about to witness everything. Chef Rick, infamous for his attitude more than skill, leaned over the sizzling steak, a twisted grin playing across his face. Then came the act. Subtle, quick, unmistakable. A spit on the steak, turned over as if nothing had happened. The sous chef laughed. Naomi froze. Denial flared first. Could it really be happening? But the laughter confirmed it. This wasn't an accident. This was routine. Her hands dove into her apron pocket, retrieving her service pen and a fresh linen napkin. The words formed quickly, urgently. "They spit in your food. This place is not safe. Asked to see the kitchen cameras. No name, just truth." The presidential prime arrived under the silver dome. Naomi's hands shook as she approached Malcolm. With practiced grace, she lifted the dome, placed the plate, and said softly, "Enjoy your meal, sir." Her left hand slipped the napkin under the corner of his place setting. A single glance, a brief nod, and she was gone. Malcolm sat, fork untouched, staring at the napkin as if it were a live wire. The words struck him like a hammer. This place is not safe. It wasn't the spit that alarmed him. It was the system behind it. Right from the root, Naomi wasn't protecting him. She was sounding an alarm. Malcolm folded the napkin, slipped it into his hoodie pocket, and pushed the steak aside. He reached for his burner phone and tapped a secure message to his chief of security in New York. Red flag at the cradle. Pull kitchen camera backups. Cross-check staff records. Full report. Malcolm rose from the table, approaching Mr. Clay, whose eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Is everything all right, sir?" Clay asked. "I'd like to speak privately," Malcolm replied, voice calm but cold. Inside the office, Clay launched into polished talk about guest experience, presentation, and policy. White noise to Malcolm. "I want to see your kitchen cameras. Tonight. Specifically around the time my steak was prepared." Malcolm interrupted, low and razor. Clay stammered, trying to stall. "Those are mainly for inventory control, not guest concerns." Malcolm's gaze hardened. "I'm giving you one chance to do this clean. You either help uncover a problem, or you bury it. Your choice." Clay fumbled, retrieved a dusty drive, and began scrolling fragmented footage. When the prep station appeared, Malcolm's arms crossed. Then a jump. 2 minutes and 12 seconds cut clean. Right when Naomi waited with the steak, Clay had tampered. Outside, the restaurant buzzed. Laughter, clinking forks, wine pouring. Inside, silence was surgical. Malcolm sent another message. Partial footage, possible tampering. Flag. Interview staff. Preserve all files. Clay visibly sweated. Malcolm turned, voice low, firm. "You're done for tonight. Walk me out. Call a lawyer." Back at his hotel, silence replaced music. His security team had pulled raw, uncut footage from cloud servers. No edits, no loops. The evidence was crystal clear. Chef Rick leaning over the presidential prime, spitting intentionally, smiling, laughing with the sous chef. Audio faint but audible. That's what you get for acting like you belong here. Malcolm leaned back, cold clarity settling in. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't bad judgment. This was culture. Rot, quiet, systemic. Footage from earlier in the week confirmed it. Black couples served late, steaks dropped, laughter in the kitchen. It was all methodical. Encrypted files were sent to legal and PR teams. Internal review, Interviews, emergency compliance. The hidden cruelty, exposed. Malcolm stared at the Charleston skyline. They had tried to humiliate him. The next morning, Naomi arrived at the cradle, exhausted. Sleep had evaded her entirely after the previous night's act of courage. Every second since slipping that napkin into Malcolm's hands had been a blur of second-guessing and dread. She expected confrontation, a call, a reprimand, anything. But the back door opened, and silence greeted her. No icy stares. No whispers. Nothing. The hostess leaned in, voice barely a whisper. Mr. Clay's office. Naomi froze. She didn't clock in. She didn't bother. Straightened her apron, and walked the long hallway to the manager's office. Expecting Clay, HR, maybe security, she didn't anticipate him. Malcolm stood there, same hoodie, calm presence. The air shifted. Naomi Brooks, he said, motioning for her to sit. She didn't, she whispered. I know, he replied. You should have. And you did. Her heart pounded. Am I being fired? Not by me, Malcolm said. I own this place. The building, the brand, the people who run it. They answer to me. Her legs gave out. She sat. I've reviewed the footage. I've seen what happened in the kitchen over months, maybe years. Naomi lowered her gaze. I didn't know who else to tell. You didn't have to. You did more than most ever would. He paused. I could shut this place down today. Fire everyone, rebrand, start fresh. But before I do, I need one thing from you. Her voice was a whisper. What choice? You can walk away quietly. Scholarship, new job, whatever you need. Or, he continued, you can stay. Help me rebuild this place from scratch as the new director of ethics and culture. Silence stretched between them. You really trust me with that? I already did. You just didn't know it yet. For the first time in a long while, Naomi breathed without fear. The next 24 hours were a whirlwind. By noon, the cradle was transformed, not just a restaurant, but a crime scene in tuxedos and suits. Malcolm moved with precision. Calls were quiet but ironclad. Legal flew in from New York. PR drafted statements. No hiding, no excuses. At exactly 12:30 p.m., 2 unmarked SUVs arrived. Lunch crowd began trickling in. Plain-clothed federal agents stepped inside. They went straight to the kitchen. Chef Rick, sous chef, and Mr. Clay, escorted out, stunned, humiliated. One day, no negotiations. Malcolm stepped to the podium outside. Cameras rolling. Reporters gathered. I entered this building yesterday as a customer. Today, I stand as its owner. What I uncovered does not reflect the values of Devo Holdings or this community. This was not a bad apple. It was a broken tree, and we are cutting it down. He gestured to Naomi. Silent, tall, and resolute. This woman showed more integrity in one night than most executives do in a career. She is the reason the truth came to light. She is the reason this place has a future. Applause wasn't polite, it was earned. We're not canceling the cradle, Malcolm continued. We're rebuilding it. Serving more than food. Serving justice. 2 weeks later, the cradle remained closed to the public, but the lights burned bright inside. Kitchens gutted. Walls repainted. Uniforms redesigned. Confederate portraits replaced with images of Charleston's unsung black pioneers, chefs, artists, and community leaders. Naomi Brooks sat at her new desk, Director of Ethics and Culture, a title heavy with responsibility, but also purpose. Her first staff meeting was unconventional. No suits, no scripts, just a circle of chairs. Some couldn't look her in the eye. Some whispered. Most listened. Naomi explained why culture failed, why silence is never neutral, and how together they would do better. She implemented anonymous reporting systems, mandatory bias training, weekly feedback sessions, and hired new managers reflecting the community they served. She even returned to school, law degree, nights and weekends, tuition covered by Malcolm. Naomi didn't walk like a student anymore. She walked like someone forged in fire. People began asking real questions, not just about policy, but about dignity, belonging, and courage. And every time, she told the same story: a folded napkin, a risk, a man who listened, and a job that had always been about more than tips. It was about truth. It wasn't a press conference that changed the cradle. It wasn't the police, lawsuits, or headlines. It was a napkin, a silent act of bravery, a system exposed. One act of courage lit a fire in a room soaked with gasoline. The fire didn't destroy everything. It revealed what was rotting. Naomi didn't have power before. She had clarity. She saw injustice and acted. Quietly, deliberately, bravely. Malcolm recognized it. The empire didn't crumble, it evolved. And sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do isn't loud or grand. It's the choice to risk safety, paycheck, and future to protect something bigger. Could you risk everything to speak the truth? Comment below. Let's hear your answer. If stories of courage and justice move you, like, share, and subscribe to Black Nation Strength. Hit the bell for more stories that expose the truth and celebrate real bravery.